Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to start off this instruction course with anatomical and functional changes that happen post-corneal refractive surgery. But this is going to be discussed in the context of what role they play in making our regular IOL power calculation inaccurate and trying to understand why these errors occur and what we can do to overcome them. So I'm going to discuss some basic concepts, some theoretical discussions, and hopefully when we move on to more practical case discussions further down in the IC, this will be of use. So to start off, IOL power calculation needs the measurement of three basic variables: the corneal power reading, the axial length measurement, and the effective lens position. Of these three, only the axial length is measured directly. The other two are derived, and that's where errors occur post-corneal laser refractive surgery. So there are three sources of errors in IOL power calculations. Each of these we're going to discuss further down: the instrument error, keratometric index error, and IOL formula error. So why does the instrument error occur? It's because the regular keratometers or topographers that we use, they measure the keratometry at a zone of 3.2 millimeters and not at the bank center of the cornea. And why would that cause an error post laser? That's because the paracentral reading that we get tends to be steeper than the absolute center in a myopic treatment. And this is more so relevant if your optical zone is small or it's a decentered treatment, we will get an erroneous keratometry reading. So to overcome this, we need to discuss measurements that will give us more central readings and machines that I think Dr. Vishal Arora will discuss further on. The second error is the keratometric index error. So the keratometric index of refraction is a standardized arbitrary figure of 1.3375. And this value is used to derive the corneal power measurement in diopters from the radius of anterior corneal curvature that we derive from our keratometers or topographers, so that it would give us the power reading in diopters. And this is a source of error because usually, the corneal power is a summation of the anterior as well as the posterior corneal curvatures. However, a single keratometric index of refraction is assuming the cornea to be a single refractive lens. It's assuming that it's a single refracting entity by assuming a fixed ratio between the anterior and posterior corneal curvature. While this may be true in unoperated or virgin eyes, this ratio is generally considered to be 1.21. What happens after a myopic ablation? In LASIK or SMILE or PRK, we are flattening the anterior corneal curvature. And then the posterior, as we see here in the next figure, the ratio between the anterior and posterior curvature gets disrupted, and then the keratometric index is invalid. That results in an overestimation of the corneal power measurement. So there'll be a 1 diopter overestimation of K reading for every 7 diopters of treatment that we have performed for myopia. An overestimation of K results in an underestimation of IOL power, and we would most likely end up in a postoperative hyperopia. And the exact reverse would occur in a hyperopic LASIK treatment done, wherein the K value is underestimated, resulting in an IOL power overestimation and a most likely postoperative myopia. So the higher the attempted correction, the higher is going to be the resulting under or overcorrection. So to overcome the keratometric index error, either we need to reduce the KI index, like the KI proportional to the amount of correction that has been done, or we need to separately measure the radius of curvature for the anterior as well as the posterior corneal surfaces using either the Scheimpflug or the ray tracing, or like swept source OCT, like the IOL Master now gives us a TK or a total keratometry value by separately measuring the anterior and posterior surfaces. So this is important for post-LASIK cases. The third error is the formula error. The routinely used third or fourth generation formulae, like the SRKT, the Holiday, Hoffer-Q, all of them, they are going to predict the effective lens position. That is where the IOL is going to sit in the eye. And for this prediction, all of them mostly use corneal power as one of the variables. The Hayes is a K-independent formula, but the rest use corneal power to predict where the IOL sits, and then it results in an error, because if you enter a very flat reading, like after your myopic treatment, the reading is 40 diopters, it assumes that this eye has a shallow anterior chamber and the IOL is positioned anteriorly in the eye, and it would then predict a lower IOL reading. So it's underestimating your IOL power after a myopic laser. Whereas after a hyperopic laser, if you were to enter a steep reading for the K value, it would assume that it's a deep AC and the IOL is positioned posteriorly, and it's going to overestimate the corneal reading. So this is a compounding effect. So after a myopic laser, you're overestimating keratometry, as we discussed earlier, and we're underestimating the effective lens position. And both of these are going to underestimate your IOL power, and you're going to end up with a hyperopic post-op error. How is a post-RK different? Like, though we don't do it routinely, we still see patients post-radial keratotomy who come for cataract surgery. So since we're not removing any tissue at all, do these errors still occur? Is it the same kind of conundrum or error that we're expecting? So yes, all three errors do occur even post-radial keratotomy. In RK, there's a very small optical zone, so instrument error is extremely relevant. The KI index, so as you see here, after a myopic LASIK or SMILE treatment, only the anterior corneal curvature is flattened. Whereas in RK, with incisions that we give, there is a flattening of the anterior as well as posterior surfaces. And maybe one were to think that, okay, both are flattened and the ratio is remaining intact of 1.21, but no, that does not happen, because the posterior corneal curvature flattens even more than the anterior corneal curvature. And the keratometric index of refraction again is invalid. In RK, another effect is the mechanical instability of the cornea that further increases the unpredictability of our IOL power calculation. Also, during surgery, sometimes if the incisions were to give way, that would further contribute to central flattening of the cornea, and that can persist for quite a long time. So these have to be considered while selecting an IOL power. So to overcome the formula error, what options do we have? Either we use K-independent formulae, like I had mentioned earlier, or the Adamberry double K method of modifying the third generation formulae. So what this does is, the pre-refractive surgery K is used to determine the effective lens position, and the post-refractive surgery K is used to calculate the IOL power in the formula. So if you were, okay, you don't have access to the fancy IOL masters or so how would you yourself manage to use this double K method? You can use the pre-refractive surgery K, either if it's clinically known, the history is known, it can be taken directly. Or if it's not known, you can predict it if you have the post-refractive accurate K reading and you know how much the correction was. For example, if your current K reading is 40 diopters and you know that a 4 diopter treatment was done, then the pre-K would be like 44 diopters. Or it can also be predicted using the posterior radius of curvature. Like we are saying that after a myopic LASIK, the posterior radius of curvature is not changing. So if as of now, it is 6.54. You multiply that by 1.21, you'll get the anterior radius of curvature, and converting it into a dioptric value would give you the pre-K reading for that particular cornea. Or there are also arbitrary like measurements from which you could derive the pre-K as shown in this table. So post-refractive surgery K calculation is, I think, going to be discussed in the next talk, but just if in the gist of it, either you know a clinical history dependent method, the reverse of what I had discussed here. That means that the post-K can be calculated if you know the pre-K along with the change in refractive treatment. That means if the K previous to the surgery was 45 and you've done a 6 diopter myopia treatment, it's going to be a 39 diopters as of now. Or similarly for a hyperopic, it's going to steepen by the amount of correction. Or if you don't have the history available, there are still corrected keratometry methods or tomography methods. So for the K corrected methods, there are empirical formulas like the Sharma's that is used commonly and it gives really good results. Or there are theoretical formulas or the Cock and Wang formula. The measured K, a modification factor is suggested from which you can derive the true K. Or tomography methods, a modification to the measured values from topography. So these the double K method does improve the accuracy. It has earlier been used for only the SRK-T formula, but now it has been included in the Holiday 2 program, the Hofer-Q. However, not all formulae allow the entry of two separate values of keratometry. So just to summarize what formula, depending on what history is available, if you have the pre-K reading as well as the pre-laser refraction as well as the post-laser immediate refraction, we can go ahead with the clinical history method. Whereas if you do not have a reliable post-laser refraction, but the pre-laser K as well as refraction were available, there is a Fies-Mannis formula that uses only the preoperative K along with the axial length to give you the IOL power. If the pre-op K was not available, you can use the double K method. The pre-op K was available, the refraction is not available. You can use the double K method for sure. And coming to, if the preoperative K is not available, but you knew the amount of refraction that the patient had, there are nomograms like this. Like if you know that, okay, a 5 diopter treatment has been done for myopia, then you target a minus 1.5 in the targeted refraction after cataract surgery. And if no history at all is available, then we have formulae like the Sharma's, the Rosa, the Ferreira. So I hope this basic introduction has helped, and as we move on to more practical discussions, it'll get even more interesting. So thank you very much for your attention.